mission-focused, right? These are goals, they're dreams, they're hopes, they're aspirations, and we get them right some of the time, and we don't get them right some of the time. That's what the spiritual journey is about. So, when we come to church on Sunday, one of the questions is, what are you here for? Now, for some people, the answer would be very simply, I'm here because there was a baptism of a child that belongs to people I love, or a child that I love, and so I'm here. What are you here for? What do you seek? Because when we start getting into that, what do you seek? You might not think you're going to get it here, but we all seek something. We seek mystery. We seek purpose. We seek meaning. We seek comfort. We seek direction. We seek purpose. We seek answers. We seek a place to hold our questions. We seek a lot of things. And in fact, probably, and I'm not going to do this, but probably if I opened the floor, we would have almost as many answers to what are you seeking as there are people here. And some people, the answer would be nothing. And others, the answer would be, I'm seeking God. So, is that something we seek? It seems, when you look at culture, that as an anthropology student, it was really clear from my studies that every single culture, every single nation, every single group of people, from tribe around a campfire right up to, enormous civilizations, has a structure for faith. Which leads me to suggest, to believe in myself, that really for many of us, there's a divine-shaped hole inside us, a God-shaped hole. And whether we call what we're seeking love, whether we call it hope, whether we call it God, whether we call it good orderly direction, or whether we call it Gus, which one of my friends did, which meant God the guy upstairs, there is this sense that when we have found something for that hole in us, that our lives will somehow be more, bigger, richer, more directed, more hopeful, more joyful, more, somehow. And so we come to church seeking. We come to church, many of us, seeking God. And the question that needs to be asked, God can't be seen, God can't be touched, tasted, or heard. The question that needs to be asked is, can we encounter God? And I would say, absolutely. This is what the chapter, that passage from John is about. So if we look at the passage from John, we see in the first, before I leap into that, you can keep it up there, but I just had a moment. The chapters of John that we're going to be studying in the next 8 weeks are between chapter 14 and chapter 17. And this is what's often called the farewell discourse. So John is the only book that has it. For most people, because it's in between the time that Jesus essentially told Judas to go do what he was going to do, right? And the time that they left the upper room where they'd been having dinner together and went to the garden, which is where Jesus would be arrested. So this is a teacher, a man who is with the people, arguably the people that he loves most in all the world. These are the people that have walked with him for 3 years. He's been trying to tell them. He's been trying to tell them in many different ways, in many different conversation, what's coming. He knows. It's like really clear. The writing's on the wall. There are too many people that are not happy with the way that he did things. Death is coming. And there were those of his followers who tried to convince him, don't go to Jerusalem. And he said, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen. And so, in John, because as we learned last week, John, the book of John, Gospel of John, was written to people who didn't have a place anymore in the community, who didn't have a place anymore in the structure, because they'd been asked to leave the synagogues because the leaders of the synagogue believed that their beliefs, those who followed Jesus, those who believed in Jesus, those who wanted to be following those footsteps, didn't fit with the Jewish traditions. So the book of John is written to a group of people who don't know who they are, what they're about, or if it even matters anymore. Right? This is some years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. And so they are living with questions. So this discourse, right, is for those people. But for those people and us. And in it, Jesus tries to let them know that they're going to be okay. And give them a vision of where they're going. So he says to them, do not let your hearts be troubled. Right? So don't be stirred up inside yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't be anxious. Don't be uncertain. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Why? Believe in God. Right? Believe in God. Believe also in me. Believe in God. Believe also in me. So he's saying, one of the antidotes to anxiety, uncertainty, fear, and grief is to hold on to God and to hold on to Jesus. And there are lots of people whose stories will tell you that that's good advice. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. This is important, okay? This is important. Now, this is one of those verses, the next few verses are ones that are trotted out at funerals, right? And they're often trotted out to talk about heaven. You know, that in heaven there are many rooms. Arguably, that may be the case. But Jesus was a turning point in history. Because for him, he made visible to us a God that was for all people. Not just for a few who got it right, but all people. And so when he said, in my Father's house, he may have been talking about creation. In my Father's house, in a spiritual home, there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. Now, he's been telling them this. I'm going to die, and I'm going to rise again. I'm going to die, and I'm going to rise again. And his disciples have been going, la, 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 right? Because he's the Son of God. He's not supposed to die. He's supposed to lead an uprising and bring the Jewish people to a new prominence. That wasn't what Jesus was there for. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself. Because the point of the whole exercise was not what happened on the day Jesus died. It was what happened on the day he was resurrected. That's the point. The point was that he would come back and connect with them and let them know that everything he had told them and everything he had told them about himself was true, was real. And so this is John's way of saying, you have a faith built in a God who didn't die, who came back, and who loves you, so that where I am, there you may be also. And we go on. And you know the way to the place that I'm going. Just a statement, right? And Thomas, now those who are around for a while know that Thomas often gets the credit as the doubter, but he asks good questions. Thomas shows up, he's asking a good question. Peter shows up, he's doing something rash. Thomas shows up, he's asking a good question. And Thomas said, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And so Jesus said to him, it's a good question, right? I don't know if Jesus had been telling them that the record that we have says that Jesus had been telling them for a long time. Thomas may have been taking it more literally because he was a little bit of a literalist, and he may have been thinking that Jesus was going on a trip and not wanting to listen to engage this idea that Jesus had been telling them what was going to happen. But so he asked the question, and Jesus' answer says to him, I am the way. So the way is a path or a movement or a process or a direction or a meaning. I am the way, the truth. The truth is something that shows itself to be real, and the life. And life is that within us that empowers our bodies to be, but more than that, it empowers us to be who we are. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. This is an incredible statement. Come on. This guy, right? This is over the top. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? No holds barred here. Jesus is laying it out there. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now I just want to say something. That second verse has been used historically by some groups in the church to say, if you don't do it this way, then you don't get loved. If you don't understand this, then you can't go to heaven. Right? Can we just set that aside? Jesus is saying, no one comes to the Father except through me. This gets explained in the next verse. If you know me, you will also know my Father. So, that whole statement, no one gets to the Father except by me, is not about me or nothing. It's about if you want to know who my Father is, get to know me. If you know me, you will know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. This is the promise. This is the gift that Jesus gives to his friends that last evening. These are the words. These are the words. It is absolutely imperative that the writer of John reiterate to a lost and frightened people. Jesus is the way. Jesus is the truth. Jesus is the life. And this God, who seems so far away, who seems so mysterious and unknowable, this God can be known by knowing Jesus. It doesn't say anything there about rules, do's and don'ts and ins and outs and who's, It says, from now on, if you know me, you will know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. To a group of people, that who is uncertain, that is a gift. Now, do we sit in this church on this Sunday morning absolutely certain of the world, our lives, and everything that's going on? I don't know about you, but not me. On any given day, I have just as much uncertainty as everybody else, right? So that means these words have come down through the centuries to talk to you right here, right now. He's not saying, I'm going to give you answers all wrapped up in a little box with a bow. He's not saying, if you do this, you'll be in. If you do that, you don't do that, you'll be in. He's saying, if you know me. Rules are way easier than relationship. But Jesus is saying, you have to know me to know God. So anyways, I just want to say this. Richard Rohr is a Catholic theologian and philosopher. And one of my favorite quotes by him is this. Jesus did not come to earth to change God's mind about humanity. That's the old line that we've heard way too often, that God sent Jesus to die so that we didn't have to go to hell. Okay? Jesus didn't come to change God's mind about us. Jesus came to change our minds about God. What he came to teach us was that God was not boxed up, was that there was no in and out, that everybody was in, that love was seeking them, love was calling them, love was willing to come down into this planet in a body to touch their faces and eat with them and walk with them and teach them and heal them. If you know Jesus, you know God. So, earlier on we said today, is it possible to know God? And the answer is absolutely. Is it easy to know God? Well, you probably can find a group of people who will give you a list of rules to follow. This is not that place. What we can give you is this commitment that we seek to be centered on Jesus, that we seek each week to know Jesus better so that we can find the God we seek. And that empty place inside us that hasn't been filled with sex or drugs or pills or alcohol or work or money or power or relationships or any of the things that we have tried to stuff in there can finally be filled. Because when we're filled, we can be people whose lives are bigger, richer, and more amazing than we ever thought possible. And you can take that to the bank, because I'm here as living proof of that. And I'm not going to share my story now. We've all heard it a lot of times. But I will tell you that it is possible to find God by whatever name you call God, by whatever understanding you have for God. It's possible to find him, to follow him, and to be transformed by that. Amen. So